Hey, good morning, everyone. Boker Tov. We are on officially on Daf Ayin Gimel, Amin but we're starting with Ayin Beis and Beis 72b, second to last line, towards the end of the line, which is Itmar. We'll discuss our topic for today momentarily. First, our daily story. So it's an interesting story, a little bit different than the usual story, say, but I thought it was a good one anyway. The story is told by Mr. Michael Cohen. We're over here. Itmar, right there. Yeah, yeah. So the story is told by a Michael Cohen, Mr. Michael Cohen. Mr. Michael Cohen runs an organization, some sort of charity organization in the United States, and he received a call from a woman who said that she's a large family. I believe it's in the United States. In Eretz Israel. Yeah. Hi. Someone's joining us. I'm not sure who it is. Me. Okay, welcome. Over there. Glad to have you with us. Sure it is. So starting our story, Mr. Michael Cohen runs a charity organization. A woman called him up, said that she has a large family, very large family, and they don't have a car. And she wondered if she could help him with the car. So, silence Baruch has, yeah, phone. 1 second. Hello? Baruch Hashem, I'm just giving my shir now. Can I call you back? Okay, stop back. Yeah. Got it. I'll take that one. Sorry. Anyway, Mr. Michael Cohen says the following. He had an organization. Someone called him up and says that she has he needs a car. So Mr. Michael Cohen says we don't give away cars. We help people with that, whatever his organization does, but we don't give cars. Because but if somebody calls me, I'm going to keep an eye open, my ears open. If somebody wants to donate a car, we'll put you down and we'll try to get you that car. So a few days later, Mr. Cohen sees an advertisement or hears an advertisement. I don't know how he heard about a certain organization. I think it's called HL something, a certain other charity organization that was giving away having a raffle. The grand prize was a car. So Mr. Cohen said, "Oh, that's a good opportunity." So he says, if I enter this raffle, I want to make sure that I give it to this woman. Make sure. So so he posts on his whatever social media, I don't know what it was, his WhatsApp or Facebook, whatever, I don't know, whatever, and he says that he's entering. This is his raffle ticket number one, and he's going to use it towards his organization to help someone who asked him for a car. He even told his daughter, daughter, you're my witness. I'm committing to this. You make sure I keep to it. No, because if you win a car, that's a lot of. Wait a second, I really mean it. So he committed to it. A couple of days later, he gets a call from that organization, HL, whatever it was. They said, "Congratulations, Mr. Cohen. You're our grand prize winner." And he won the car. So, believe it or not. So, he says, "No, a good thing I put it on my whatever, Facebook account, whatever it is. And I told my daughter, told his daughter, we're going to stick to it." He calls up the woman and says, "Guess what? You're the proud owner of a new car." He gave it to her. So that's pretty amazing. The next year, a year later, Mr. Cohen gets another call from another person. That they really have a large family, similar situation, needs a car. He then explains, I don't really, our organization help people, guide people, maybe some charity. We don't really have cars to go away, but I've done some tests, and if I happen to come across a car, or somebody wants to donate a car, we'll give you a car. So he apparently was on the mailing list and the text SMS list of this organization. So he gets a text SMS on his phone a couple days later. It says, "Last chance to buy tickets for our yearly car raffle for HL whatever, this organization." I was thinking to myself, I can win it twice. I win it twice. It's a true story. I'm not going to win it twice. Oh, I got to lose. So he buys a raffle ticket, does the same thing again. have an organization. Tells his daughter again the same thing. And a couple days, next day or 2 days later, whatever it was, he gets a text. Congratulations, you're the winner of the car, grand prize. You won 2 years in a row. And he called up the woman or the man. He says, congratulations, we have that car for you. So 2 years in a row, he won the same raffle. Not because it's him, because of other people's merit. But the true story. It's a wild story. What are the chances of winning a raffle like that twice? It's a wild story. Um, but yeah, that's about as crazy a story as I've heard. Yeah. Some of the stories we hear are miraculous, but this, even an actuary, a statistician, a mathematician would be impressed. So a very cold, dry scientist would be very impressed with this one. Could not. It's pretty amazing. Kadosh Baruch Hu doesn't work with odds. He just has his ways. So Baruch Hashem. So it gives us a lot of hope when you do good things. Doesn't always work out the way we want, but sometimes do good things. God guides us and does amazing things for us if we do things for others. Do things for others. Lubavitch, Chabad, their ideology. I'm not an expert about ideology, but the Chabad ideology is that the goal of a person here in this world is to help out spiritually another Jew. That's your goal. That's your goal. That's it. Wherever that takes you, Bangkok or I don't know, wherever, Australia or South America, wherever it takes you, that's where you are, helping another Jew spiritually and physically too. But, so, when you're helping another Jew, God guides you and helps you. Okay, so we should be Zocha, we should be worthy to help many people in their endeavors, and God will take care of us too. That was an interesting story. Not a typical one, but yeah. Okay, so let's get with the Gemara here. A little bit of a challenging, not a Gemara. It's the Amud, as you see, Amud Ayin Gimel small. Probably get through it. Move on to the next one too. But we'll do our best. That one. Just take a drink. Okay. So you're on the bottom of Ayin Beis Amud Beis. 72b, second to last line. Itmar is we're up to. Right by the two dots. So we're discussing the following case. Discussing cases of a woman who, man marries a woman conditionally. For example, that she doesn't have any no os. So the last Rashi in the page says, Al Tanaim, in the case we're going to discuss, the She'in Al Anidar marries her on the stipulation, on the condition she doesn't have any os, that outstanding os, called that, current os. And then he then goes ahead and that's where he does the Erisin, is the first stage of marriage on that premise. Then he goes ahead and marries her without any stipulation, just goes and marries her. And then he finds out that she has os. So what is the status there? She need to, if they want to, is it considered, he made a condition and the condition wasn't fulfilled, so there's no real marriage. If they want to absolve the marriage, they need to get or not. That's the discussion. So let's read that inside. That's going to be the discussion here for, I guess, the next couple of days. So let's read it inside. So Itmar. Let's say the following. It's a discussion elsewhere as well in Yevamos. Itmar. Kidsha al Tanai. A man marries a woman. That's the first stage of Kedushin. Erisin. Kedushin is called. Al Tanai. On a condition, as I said in Rashi, that on the condition that she doesn't have any os, any Nidar. The Kansa stop. And then he does Chuppah, he does the second part, the Nesuin, he actually marries her. They cohabit together, but without a condition. He didn't mention any condition.
This is a case where we married her initially. She didn't make any vows, but during also the suing, she did make a vow.
I think it's a pre-existing vow, I think, as far as the implications from Rashi. He marries her honestly, the Kansa, and then he finds out that she has. Lo and behold, she's a vowed woman, or to say. So what's the status? So Rav Omar Tzricha Himenu Get. Rav says he needs a get. Now that's going to need some explanation because the marriage in the first place was conditional, and the condition wasn't fulfilled. You think there's no marriage in the first place, and that's what Shmuel's going to say. Shmuel Omar Ein Tzricha Himenu Get. Doesn't need a get because when he did the suin, it was based on the previous condition, and and when they cohabited too, it was based on the previous condition, on the initial stage. It was done conditionally. The condition wasn't fulfilled. There was no marriage in the first place, and that's what Shmuel says. We understand that. But Rav, we need some explanation. We're going to explain it right now. We'll say it outside a bit. Rav is going to say that when he finally did the chuppah and the stew in the last stage of marriage, and they cohabited, he did that bia, that cohabitation together, was for the sake of marriage, because he did it even if she does have nidar, even if he does have oath, he would have done it as a full-fledged kind of entrance into the marriage. So she would need a yes. And we're going to explain that. I'll explain that concept in a moment. So now we're going to try to. I said briefly Rav, and we're going to try to understand Rav. So what's Rav's reason? He marries again. He marries her, does kedushin. On the condition there are no oaths. The kansa, and then he does the nisuin, the last part of marriage, chuppah, together, cohabit, without mentioning anything like that. So why does Rav say you get? There was a stipulation made, and he didn't fulfill that condition. It should never take place. The marriage should not be marriage in the first place. Why do they need to get to absolve it? So lo tema is what we might think, but don't say this. Lo tema, time of the Rav, right on top now, on Ayin Gimel Amid Aleph 73a, right on top. Better job highlighting here. Okay, lo tema, don't say time of the Rav. The reason why Rav says they need to get is kiven jekanta stam achule achle letane. Then it's likely, we assume he was mochel, he forgoed, right? He forgoed on his he forgoed on the condition. He says, okay, I'm now getting married, I'm mochel, and I'm not exacting, don't need that condition anymore. That's not the reason. If that would be the reason, that'd be fine. Get rid of the condition, then obviously it's a good marriage. But Ella, time of the Rav, what's the reason of Rav? Adam oseb bilaso bilas nus. Person doesn't make, when he cohabits together with this woman who's going to be his wife, he doesn't make that cohabitation with her. He doesn't make it, one of an immoral act. He makes it an act that's for kedushin. So even though there was an initial kedushin on a condition, when he actually go together and have the suin and cohabit, he does it on the condition that this should be, be the sort. This should be it, even if she happens to have oaths. This should be a marriage, even if that's the case, because he wants to make it official. He doesn't make have a bia that's not going to work out into a marriage. It's not going to have a cohabit with her. It's not going to produce a correct marriage. So obviously, what he did, he finally kansastam. Rav says he did it he did it in a way that even if she has oaths, he wants to go ahead and complete the marriage. So therefore, if he decides they don't want to be married, then they would need a get.
Why would a guy say that he must have waited to see the stipulation? Because stipulation is there, and we make no comment on wavering at all. So the stipulation still must have been there.
Yes, so that's a good question.
And the man said, no, he must have wavered it, and he couldn't. And so when he happened to give his wife, and found out afterwards that obviously the stipulation was still there.
Right, so that's what Shmuel says. So obviously, the stipulation is still there, and the marriage is null and void. But Rav says differently. He says that when they finish the marriage, when they finally are together, cohabit, the man wants to make this. A person doesn't make his cohabit with his wife or soon-to-be wife unless it's a good kedushin that's going to produce a good marriage. So therefore, he knows that when he does that, when they cohabit together, he has in mind that even if there are oaths, I'm now mochel on them. I forego on them because he wants this act of cohabiting together, to be a good one, not to be like an immoral one that produces a good marriage. So that's why it's a little bit hard to understand. Shmuel, as I said, is easier to understand than Abaye's way of learning Rab. But it's not the simple way to understand it. But he said, yeah, a man wants the marriage to be complete, even if that means foregoing, even without saying, uh, on the condition that he made. Yeah. So it's hard to understand, but that's what Rab seems to be saying, according to Abaye. So the Gemara asked, so it's right here. The Gemara asked, fourth line down, second word in. We already had this argument between Rav and Shmuel in a different way once before. Dietmar, as we learned earlier, it's also in Ramos. Dietmar, Katana, a girl who gets married, a Katana who gets married off, but not by her father. She gets married off by her. It's like a Yisoma. You have an orphan girl, orphaned of her father, and then the Rabbanan on a rabbinic level, her brother or her mother can marry her off on a rabbinic level. So Katana gets married like that, and there's a stipulation in this marriage that she can do miyud, that she could protest, or say she doesn't want the marriage, and retroactively it's absolved all the way back from when it started. Interesting concept. So you have this case, a katana, a girl whose father is no longer alive, and her mother or her brother marry her off rabbinically, and then shalom yanash until she gets 12, which is the time limit that she can protest. She doesn't do lo miyana, doesn't protest. Big dila, and when she gets married, and then after she gets married, and obviously the husband and this girl, who's now an adult, cohabit together, and then she protests after that once she's an adult, which doesn't count. Amda Manises, then she goes and gets married to someone else, based on the fact that she protested after she was an adult. She can't protest after adult, doesn't count. So yeah, let me just say the opinions, then we'll go back and explain the case. It's a little complicated. Rab Amar Ein Tzricha Get. Rab says she doesn't need a get from the second guy that she married. Why? Because the first guy, even though the original marriage to this katana, to this young girl, was only rabbinic, it's only drabanan, she became an adult, and they cohabited, the husband and wife. It must have been when he cohabited, he understood that she's a katana, she's a little girl, when they first got married. He wants this cohabitation, this bia, to be for the sake of kedushin, not be inappropriate one, to be kedushin. So therefore, it counts as a kedushin that they're fully married at that point. So that's why Rav has his opinion.
A minor, a girl at 11, got married.
Right.
And she could be married, right?
Right.
According to the notes, who continued to cohabit with her after she reached adulthood, which means that she's 12 and a half then.
Yes.
Adulthood, right?
Correct.
And
12 and a half. Right.
so they married another man without a get. It says here.
Yes.
And then become an adult while continues to be with her husband.
But yeah.
Therefore, she only married another man without the benefit of a get.
Check.
Isn't that adultery?
So yeah, that's exactly. Well, yes, that's the case we're discussing. She thinks when she protested after she became an adult, that works. It absolves the marriage. She thought that would absolve her marriage, but it doesn't absolve the marriage because it doesn't work. If she would have done it when she was 11 and 3/4, it would have been great. And she absolves the first marriage, gets married to the second guy, and that's it. But she got married to the first guy, didn't protest until she was an adult. Then she protests. They cohabited now. So the marriage was originally rabbinic, but now they cohabited together, according to Rav. We'll discuss that, not according to Shmuel. So now she thinks she can protest and go off and marry someone else, but she can't. I don't know who was the Masada Kushan by the second one, but obviously maybe they did it themselves. That's what the Rambam says. Way back when, you just met a woman, Kedushin, and so. Um, uh, so yeah, so that's the case. So the case, yeah. Let me just state the case one more time. It's complex. The girl gets married. She's doesn't have a father. Father passed away. So rabbinically, Rabbanan, she gets married by her brother or mother, and she has the right to protest to this marriage. She doesn't like it until she becomes an adult. She didn't protest. She becomes an adult. Right.
To the second man, therefore she doesn't need to get.
Yeah, according to Rob. According to Rob. Yeah. Right. According to Rob. Yeah. Okay. So then she she thinks the miyun works, protest works. So she gets married. After that, she marries the second guy. So Rob says it's meaningless, the second one, because she was really married to the first one. How was she really married to the first one? The first one was only rabbinic. So it's a pretty good marriage, not a perfect marriage. But then once they cohabited together, it must have been that he had this cohabitation, the bia, for the sake of marriage. So that gives the marriage diaraisa on a Torah level. It's another marriage on a Torah level, according to Rabbis. When a man has the cohabits, has the bia, it's not on the original rabbinic kedushin that they did. It's now to make a new kedushin. Rav says, therefore, the second marriage is nothing. He's already fully married. Shmuel Amar, let me read it inside. I don't think we did it. Shmuel Amar, tzricha get misheni. No, you do need a get from the second one, because when the husband of this girl, now adult, cohabited when she was an adult, the cohabitation was not like to form a new marriage, to make this consecrate, whatever the word, to solidify, to make it Torah level marriage. He was doing it, says Shmuel, based on the original marriage, which is Durabanan, which is rabbinic. So according to Shmuel, therefore the first marriage is only rabbinic. The second marriage is maybe as a suffix. You only had a rabbinic marriage, not a second guy married her, so you need a get from the second guy. A little, Rav is a little bit smoother to understand this time. Shmuel was smoother last time. Rav's a little more easy to understand, but. So now the question is, and the Gemara is bringing here, it seems like these two cases are pretty similar. Rav and Shmuel are arguing essentially about the same thing twice. Why? Because it's saying the same idea. By the case of the woman who supposedly didn't have any oaths, he made a condition that he marry her when she doesn't have any oaths. Rav said, when he finally marries her, he wants to marry her for the sake of a good, solid marriage, and then forgoes on the conditions and wants to make this this cohabitation, for the sake of marriage. So therefore, it's a good marriage. And if they want to absolve it, he would need to get. But Shmuel says no. He cohabited with her based on the previous condition, was that she doesn't have any oaths. Based on that, the marriage is null and void. So it doesn't need to get. And now we're saying essentially the same thing with this case. You have this girl who gets married, and they're a bonan, she's a katana, married off by her mother or brother, and then she becomes older, and the husband lives with her. They cohabit together as bia. So the question is, so then according to Rav says the same thing. When he does the bia, he wants it to create a new marriage, not based on the old one. And so therefore, it's a good marriage. The second marriage is nothing. So according to Rav, it's the same principle in both cases. That when he has the bia with her, he wants it to form a good, new, rabbinic, good marriage. And Shmuel says the opposite. No, whenever they cohabit after either in a kedushin without an addition, there's no oaths, or here, kedushin after when she grows up, now as an adult, he does it based on the previous, earlier stage. Based on the earlier stage, and you have problems. That's the discussion. Rav and Shmuel, same idea. Is this new time that they have bia? Is it a new thing? Like Rav says, it's new, they're doing it for the sake of a new kedushin, or is it like Shmuel says, no, it's based on the prior kedushin, when she was a katana, or when that she made a stipulation that doesn't have oaths. So basically, Rav and Shmuel have the same opinion twice. Why do we need both cases? That's the question the Gemara says.
Rav is saying that the man would have his wife for promiscuous reason, for kedushin reason.
Right.
But he wouldn't know there was any stipulation, any vows that she had till afterwards.
Right. So
so kedushin takes place per se.
Right. Yeah, he doesn't know. He does. I want to make this good. this. I don't make it like cohabitation that afterwards you find out we're not married, so it's just a illicit
it's not
kind
the
of thing.
kedushin, it's the stipulation of the vow that you can get a divorce on it, not the kedushin.
Right.
Whereas Shmuel reference kedushin knocks out the stipulation of the vow.
Yeah, from the initial condition, they made a stipulation. Yeah, yeah, a little bit of a challenging piece here. Yeah. Okay. So the Gemara says tzricha. Why do we need both cases? Uh, okay, tzricha. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lines down. Tzricha. The Gemara says, "Di itmar bahi." If we would have just learned this most recent case of the girl, the young girl who only protests after she becomes an adult about the marriage, if we only learned that, bahi kama Rab. In that specific case, Rab says, no, he had in mind when she became an adult, when they had bia, when they cohabited, that should be for a good kedushin. Why? Mishum deleka tana. There's no tanai case here. And in this case, everyone knows that the original kedushin was with the katana, with a little girl. It's not a full valid. It's only derabbanan. It's only rabbinic. So he knows now that she's an adult. When we're together, have bia, cohabit. Want it to be for the sake of a good kedushin. That's why Rab said it for that specific case. Aval Baha, but in the first case we talked about when he married her on the stipulation on the condition, there's no os. Aval Baha, the ikatana, when there are tanai stipulation. Maybe he admit when he's finally getting married, he says, well, I'm assuming she doesn't have any os. I'm just going to go and marry based on the previous kedushin. Do the nisuin based on the previous condition. So maybe he would agree to Shmuel that it's not a good marriage because there's stipulation there. There's oath. V and Marbaha. If we just had the first case, the case of where he marries her initially as a kedushin, based assuming she doesn't have any oaths on the condition, she doesn't have any oaths, and finds out she does, marries her stam. Baha, Ivid Marbaha, Baha Kamer Shmuel. In this specific case, Shmuel says, well, we would assume that when he gets married, he assumed, well, she probably doesn't have any oaths. So he bases the bia and they have cohabit based on the original kedushin, which is on a stipulation. Aval Bahach, by our case of the young girl, Ema Modele Rab. Maybe perhaps he would agree to Rab because why? Because everyone knows this is the original kedushin by this young girl. She was 11 years old or something like that. And everyone knows it's not a full kedushin. So therefore, when she becomes an adult and they finally are together, they cohabit, they have bia together, that he would want it to be a full solid kedushin. So therefore, he would the bia would be on that along those lines. And it should be a good kedushin for this bia, according to Ra, according to Ra.
Seems strange. Married this girl of 3/4 or whatever.
Yeah.
Obviously, she's married because he wants to have beer with her, and that he's married her on the kedushin, not promiscuous.
Right.
And since she's married her kedushin, and he found out that she's made a vow after kedushin, I'll be saying their marriage is twice finished. She needs a get.
Yeah, because it's a full marriage.
Has she told the husband before kedushin, before Kira, that she has made a vow and stipulated well, right? And therefore the kedushin is not valid.
Yeah, he's basing according to Shmuel, he's basing that bia, that cohabitation, based on the prior kedushin, which has potential vows in it. So therefore, if they find out to have vows, then it's always kedushin.
But it doesn't mention that if she's married to the first guy, and then she marries a second guy, that mention the vow.
Well, it doesn't mention that there. We're focused there. So we're focusing on the status, whether she needs a get or not. The second guy, yeah, it's definitely problematic to be married to a second husband. Yeah. At the same time as the first one. It's called this birth. Oops. Somebody's trying to call. Oh, this wasn't ringing. So many phones. Okay, maybe that doesn't have range. Okay. Okay. So now we're going to ask a question on Shmuel based on our Mishnah. Our Mishnah, we're going to ask a question on Shmuel. Okay. So that's the question on Shmuel. Our Mishnah said the following. It said that the second case in the Mishnah, Kansa Stam, he just marries her. Tanan, we learned in our Mishnah, Kansa Stam, he marries her, no stipulation that she doesn't have any host. She's Kansa Stam. The Nimsu Allah Nadar. And then he finds that, lo and behold, she has oath. So, Teitse below Shalo B'Ksuva. She goes out and doesn't get a Ksuva. So, what does that imply? Mishnah said, in such a case, she goes out but does not get a Ksuva. Ksuva hu lo boy. Hagita boya. She doesn't need it. She doesn't get a ksuva. It's require a ksuva. But a get she does need. Does need a get. Okay. So the case where so what's this case? So in this case, he married her stam. The marriage, I should say, the Nisuin, the second stage of marriage. Chuppah, Nisuin. That he married her without any stipulation. And there she doesn't need a ksuva, but she does need a get. So what exactly is the case? My lab kitchal tanai the kansastam. Isn't it the case is not just kansastam they did nisu in the second part of marriage without any stipulation. It's when there was a stipulation by the kedushin. Kitchal tanai, he married to the first stage of kedushin, the harrison, on the condition that there are no oaths. Then he does a second stage of marriage without mentioning the oaths. And in that case, it seems to be the implication of the Mishnah is that that she doesn't make suva, but she also, but she does need a get. That's what it implies, and that is a tiyufta to Shmuel. That's a refutation to Shmuel, seemingly. Seemingly, proved otherwise, but seemingly it's a problem for Shmuel. Why is it a problem for Shmuel? Shmuel said in that very case, if we're making assumptions on what the case in the Mishnah is. Shmuel is going to disagree with that assumption, but the assumption is that the case in the Mishnah is, the second case in the Mishnah is based on the first case, that he marries her. The first stage of Kedushin is Kedushin Erison, on the conditions that she doesn't have any oaths, any Nadarim, and then he does a second stage of marriage, Nisuin, Puppah. That's whatever, it is Nisuin, without making any mention, and then he finds the Dharam, she goes out without a Ksuva, but she does need a get. And Shmuel said in that very case, he doesn't need a get. And Shmuel said he doesn't need a get because it was based on the stipulation. When they finally get married, it's based on the original stipulation. Didn't fulfill the original stipulation. She has oaths. There's nothing to talk about. You don't need a get. There's no marriage in the first place. It's exclusion, as you said.
But the Commission clearly states that she may be divorced, which implies a get, without being paid a Kesuvos. The Commission requires that a Kesuvos is not required. It is only a Kesuvos that is not required. But the get is required because it mentions it. She may get divorced.
Right.
So which implies a get.
Right. Implies a get. And again, Shmuel said in that very case, you don't need a get. Shmuel says you don't need a get because it's based on what they finally either the final stage of marriage is based on the first stage of marriage. So, and what's the condition of the first stage of marriage? The condition was the whole condition only works if there are no oaths. She finds that she has oaths. No need for gets, according to Shmuel. This Mishnah, the way we're reading the Mishnah, not clear. The way we're reading the Mishnah seems to imply that it runs in the face of what Shmuel says. So let's flip the page. Let's move this out of the way. Okay. Here we are. Let's back up. Okay, larger, sorry. There we go. Okay, so we're on flip the page to Iron Gimel Amid Base 73b. We'll get through some of this today because it's a very large piece for tomorrow. So a head start. So say lo, say no. The implication of what the Mishnah said, we're not reading correctly according to Shmuel. Lo, when it says kitcha stam, the second case of the Mishnah, when it says kitcha stam, he marries her. It is when he does the nisuin, the second stage of marriage, stam without making any stipulation. It's not that he did the kedushin with stipulations that there's no oaths, no nadarim. No, lo, kitchestam, the kansastam. It's when he did the kedushin without any mention of os. Didn't mention anything. And then he did the second stage of marriage, the suin, also without mentioning anything. So in that case, he didn't make any stipulation. She doesn't get exila, but he need to get because even that's not that everyone that's that doesn't run against Shmuel because everyone would agree there. There was no condition. He married. They did the second stage of marriage, everything without any conditions. He finds out there's something there he doesn't like, so he's entitled to have her go out without exuma. But he didn't get. It was a good marriage. Uh, Aval, Shmuel would say, Aval Kidshal tonight. But if she does marry with the stipulation, the Kansastam, and then just marries without any condition that there's no oath, Achanami de lo Gita. Indeed, we don't need any get. We would need a get according to Shmuel. In that case, there's no need to get because when he did the second stage of marriage, it was based on, if we were together, the cohabited, the bia, is based on the original part of the marriage, which was the kedushin, based on the initial kedushin, not a new kedushin, it's an initial kedushin. That was based on the tanai, on a condition. There's no oath. They find it the oath. So the whole marriage doesn't start in the first place. Doesn't need to get according to Shmuel. That's the way you want to read that. Okay. So the Gemara asks a question on that. Just a sort of a technical question. Third line from the back. Adatani hamakadish is an isha. What if you're learning it? You're always going to ask on the way the Mishnah set up. The first case, the Mishnah saying where we could learn a bigger chiddush, a greater insight in the way. What was the original case? Adatani, while you're learning what the Mishnah did say, hamakadish is an isha. The man does erisin, initial stage of marriage for the woman, al manash ein along the on the condition that she doesn't have any os, pre-existing os, that are still valid. The nimsu ala nadar, and then he finds that she has os, edim gudeshes. The marriage is not marriage. Now, here we're not talking about the second stage of marriage. That's the first case of the Mishnah. This case of the Mishnah is just that first stage of marriage, just erisin. He does erisin, he gives her, a ring based on the fact, assuming that on the stipulation that is, that she doesn't have any pre-existing oaths, no nidara. And then they don't go on to the second stage of marriage yet. They're still in the first stage of marriage. He finds that she does have oaths. Marriage is nothing. That didn't happen in the first place. It never happened because it was on a stipulation. That stipulation wasn't fulfilled. No marriage. So the Gemara says, instead of learning that way, learn as follows. Listening, learn the following case, one we just mentioned. Konsastam, where he does the first part. He says he marries her on the condition, there's a kedushin, there's the erisin, on the condition that she doesn't have any vows. And then konsastam, and then he does in the second part of marriage, the suin, without mentioning any stipulation about those. The nimsul and the then he finds that she does have the dar, she has pre-existing oaths. Eina mekudeshes. Then she's not married. But kol shakein ha, and certainly the simple case the Mishnah didn't mention, of just the first stage of marriage. You have a more complicated case, a more greater chiddush. That's a better way to put it. Greater chiddush. Why did the Mishnah learn the more simple case? Makadosh is the isha. Just when they never left the realm of erisim, then the vow, existence of vows annuls the marriage. Make it more complicated, like we just said, more advanced, let's say, more all-inclusive case, which includes this case of the Mishnah itself also, and that is that if she went through the first stage of marriage on the condition there's no oaths, and then they married Stam, and they find the oaths, they're also Einim Hudesh. And certainly the case the actual mentions. Why did it not do that? The Gemara says, Hachanami. Hachanami Kamar. Now that's the Mishnah is in fact saying that. They're not changing the Rashi and the Rishpa saying we're not changing the Girsa. We're just saying what it. We're not changing the Girsa. It's not the Chesura Mechsera. Something's missing. It's the way to learn the Mishnah. I think I don't know exactly how to read that in. Like one of the Rashi and the Rishpa. We're not changing the Girsa. It's not something's missing in it. That's a way to learn the implication and the correct implication of the Mishnah. Perhaps that's how the Rashi and the Rishpa was learning it. Anyway.
The argument still carrying on after the suing of beer, because this is we just heard about Rusin, not Rusun.
Right.
So the stipulation before and they got married, and after she found out that there was male, then Rob's still saying the marriage is always a get, and still saying no.
Right.
And what about the other way around? Assuming Rusin, no stipulation, but marriage, yes, stipulated, and get married and have gear. Is the answer still the same with Rav and Shmuel?
That's an interesting question. The Gemara does not mention that particular case yet. A little bit ahead. So
yeah, no, it doesn't mention it, but
interesting question.
It still must be the same.
It seemed like this. This seemed, yeah. I would assume it'd be the same. You'd think maybe not because he made the stipulation now, so he wouldn't. There's a stipulation, and here's the via. The assumption is still true, like you said. Now, ein adam asa bi'alasa bi'las nus. The person wouldn't make his cohabit unless it's for a kedusha, for a good purpose, not just that it's not going to fulfill the marriage. It's going to be illicit, so to speak.
No stipulation either illicit nor pursuing. You can understand that they're legally married.
Right, then you definitely
get divorced.
Correct, yes.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm following it so far.
Baruch Hashem. It's not, I went over this many times. It's not an easy piece. Okay. Okay, let me read that again. So Hachanami Kamar. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines down. We just highlight it a little bit more completely. Hachanami Kamar. Right, so I can see this properly. Hachanami Kamar. Now that's in fact what the implication of the Mishnah, the Rashi to say. Kamar. I'm a Kaddish is the Isha. This is what the Mishnah means. I'm a Kaddish is the Isha. A person does Erusin, the first stage of marriage. Al Manash, Ein Alanagar, on the condition that she doesn't have any oaths. The Kansa Stam, and when he does the second part of the marriage, the Suin, and they together in the private, he doesn't make any such stipulation. The Ninsu Lanagar, he finds that she hasn't done Ein Mekudeshas, and she's not married. That's what we said. That's the way to read the Mishnah. But, comma, Kitra Stam, like you were saying, Alan, Kitra Stam, the Kansa Stam. If he marries her, the first stage of marriage, good word, Kitra, does Erusin, without any stipulations, doesn't mention anything about oaths, the Kansa Stam, and then he does the Nisuin without any stipulations as well. Teitze Shalom Ksuva. She goes out and does not get Ksuva. So what does that mean? Ksuva hu de lo boya, as we said before. Ksuva she doesn't need. Hagita boya, that doesn't get, I should say. But Hagita boya, but she needs a get. But she needs a get, as we said, obviously she needs a get. There's no stipulation. He marries her. There's the first stage, I shouldn't say it. He does Erusin with her, gives her a ring, whatever, and they do that stage without any stipulation about oaths. And then they do the second stage of marriage, and the Suin, also without any stipulation. Then he finds that she has oaths. It's a good marriage. He's not happy. He says, I don't want to live with a Isha Nidronis, with a woman who's always taking oaths. That's potentially grounds for a divorce. She doesn't have Iksuba. But a get she certainly needs, because that's a real marriage. There's no stipulation, one way or the other. Certainly needs a get. So the Gemara asks, Umay shna ksuva delobay. Why does she not get a ksuva? It's a good marriage. Why does she not get a ksuva? He doesn't like the fact that she's always saying, so that's grounds for a divorce. But why does she not get a ksuva? Umay shna ksuva delobay. The Amar, because he says, Efshi isha nidronis. I can't live. It's not possible, really. I can't live with a woman who's always taking oaths. It's not going to work for me. What does that mean? Efshi be as Rashi says, second Rashi in the narrow lines, second part of Rashi, Kiman da asni dami. It's as if he stipulated it. It's if he stipulated it becomes, it uproots it. So as if he stipulated, I don't want a woman who's taking oaths. So therefore, doesn't get ksuba. Well, if it's a stipulation, it's as if he stipulated he doesn't want a woman who has oaths. He get nami loti boy, and just shouldn't neither get either. If the whole premise why, again, the case being Kansastan, Kadistan, Kitchestan, he does the Erusin without any conditions, and then does the Nesuin without any conditions, doesn't get a ksuva, and she does need a get. So why does she not need a ksuva? We understand why he has a right to divorce her. He doesn't want such a woman who's always taking oaths. But why? We understand why she needs get because it was a full marriage. But why does she not get a ksuba? So we say the reason she doesn't get a ksuba is because it says if there was stipulated in the marriage, I don't want a woman who is taking oaths. Therefore, we can uproot her right to ksuba. Well, if that's true, it says if he made a stipulation, he doesn't want a woman who takes oaths. So it's as if on a certain level, as if the whole marriage is uprooted. And why does she need a get? Right there in the middle of the first wide line. So, Amar Rabba, two opinions. Let's see after that yet. But okay. Amar Rabba, Rabba says as follows. Amar Rabba, Sricha get midivreha. Rabba says on a rabbinic level, she needs a get. In other words, in principle, really, since it's like there was a Tanai, like a stipulation, she really doesn't need the get to go after this marriage. It's almost like this stipulation. But we're not so solid with that to let a woman who's potentially married go out without a get. So on a rabbinic level, we make her give a get. It's sort of like it was stipulated that he didn't want a woman. He didn't say it. It's sort of like he stipulated he didn't want a woman who has oaths. He never said it. So we say he says so if he stipulated, it should make the marriage void. But she never really said it. So on a rabbinic level, Rabbah says we make her get a get. So says the Chitzla, Tzricha get me dibrech. We need a get. She needs a get on a rabbinic level, just to make sure everything is. You don't play games with a married woman, let her get remarried. So for sure she's halachically allowed to. But that's Rabbah's reason. Rabbah says something similar or from a different angle. Rabbah Amar Tana Sfuke Misaktiva. The Tana who wrote this was in doubt. Is it in fact true? Assume Misapikle. If it's true, we say about such a person, as Rashi says, Al Stam Adam im Efshi Be'isha Nidronis im Lav. Do we say this concept that it's as if he stipulated or not? Do we say such a thing? And therefore, perhaps the marriage is void if he finds out that she had oaths. So Tana Safuki Nisapile. Gabi Memona, when it comes to paying up the ksuba, we go the kula. The kula, we can, it's just money, not just money, but doesn't carry the same weight. We say we're pretty sure that a man who finds out a woman has oaths will say yafshi be'ishan andronis. I can't live with a woman who's prone to taking oaths all the time. So therefore, it says if he stipulated, and so that's enough to absolve him of paying the ksuba. Gabe isura l'chumra. When it comes to isura, prohibited, isura, not this one. When it comes to isurin, when it comes to things that are prohibited, such as marrying a married woman, we go l'chumra. We're going much more stringently. We don't take any chances, even though we're in doubt whether a man meant that. I can't live with a woman in dryness. It's almost if he stipulated it. That's not enough to let her go out without a get. So we make sure she gets a get in that case. Okay. So we'll start the next couple lines. It's like a whole new approach. I guess we'll start. We'll just do another 2 minutes or so here. So this we'll have to review tomorrow, but this is a little bit complicated. So we go back to where we started originally on Amud Beis and Beis. We had a machlokes, disagreement between Rav and Shmuel. Remember, Rav and Shmuel. The case was where he marries her. The classic case here that we have. He marries her on condition doesn't have any oaths, and then he just goes ahead with the second part of marriage, and the suing without any stipulations. Rav says she needs a get, and Shmuel says she doesn't need a get. So we had a way to look at that. We said Rav says when a person has that new bia, it was for the sake of kedushin. He wants to make it work. So that means we now have a valid marriage. It wasn't based on any stipulation. It's a get. Shmuel says no. He did the bia, did that cohabit. It was based on the original kedushin, which was on a condition. The condition wasn't fulfilled. She has oath. Doesn't need to get. So now we're going to explain it in a different way. We're going to explain it in a different way. Let's or minute. We'll start it. A third narrow line at the end. Amar Rabba, machlokes b'tor shtei nashim. Machlokes between Rabba and Shmuel is when it's a case of two women, married two women. When there's only one woman, everyone agrees he doesn't need a get. So what's this case that Rab is talking about? I said it live there, let me explain it. And if he marries one woman and makes a condition, there's Arison, and he makes a condition that she doesn't have any oaths. And then he marries a second woman. And this woman, he doesn't make any stipulations. He just marries her. He's more interested in her. He doesn't have any preconditions with this one. He just have a proclivity towards oaths. I don't know, whatever the case may be. And then he finds out the second woman does in fact have oaths on her. So that's where the machlokas Rav and Shmuel is. We'll go over this again tomorrow, but this is a whole piece. But Rav says the reason is Rav says no, he married her stam. Stam is a good marriage. He didn't make any stipulations, so he didn't get. Shmuel says no, he didn't stipulate the second woman that she shouldn't have any oaths. But since he stipulated the first woman, it's as if he stipulated the second woman also shouldn't have any oaths. So therefore, he finds that she has oaths. It's as if he stipulated, and therefore the marriage is null and void. But when it comes to a case, we'll go over this again. But in a case when she does in fact, it's only one woman we're talking about, and they stipulated no oaths, and then he marries her stam. Everyone would agree it was based on the original marriage, and based on original marriage, and doesn't need a get. We'll discuss that. It's like runs a get. We were saying again. That's what we were saying before. We'll have to go over this again.
So basically, which a man proposed a certain woman, say Leah, stipulating that she not be under the vows, and then betrothed another woman, say Rachel,
right?
Rachel, without making any stipulation. It turned out that Rachel was under the vows, simultaneously the fact that he made a stipulation when he betrothed Leah indicates that he did not want to marry the woman who was under vows. Consequently, though he did not explicitly make the same stipulation when he betrothed Rachel, we consider the stipulations have been implicit in Rachel's betrothal as well. So when Rachel is discovered to have been under vows, after all, her marriage is void. Rav, however, maintains that it is possible that he was more enamored with Rachel than Leah. Therefore, he made a stipulation when he betrothed Leah, and had no such stipulation when in mind when he betrothed Rachel. Since his marriage to Rachel may have been considered to have been free of any stipulation, and is not voided of discovery that she was under vows.
Yes. Exactly. We'll go over again.
That is the two women.
Yeah, we'll complicate it. Yeah, we'll go over again tomorrow. Okay, thank you for coming. Yeah.